sharing with you a Portuguese cookie called biscoitos. I would describe these as the Portuguese version of the Italian biscotti. They're hard and crunchy and perfect for dipping in a cup of coffee or a glass of wine. I live in an area of the United States that has a very large Portuguese population from both Madeira and the Azores. So I'm actually surrounded by a lot of grocery stores that carry Portuguese products, as well as bakeries and cafes, and also festivals that celebrate Portuguese culture. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about that today, as well as share with you how to make this simple cookie. So let's get started. This recipe is adapted from a little cookbook that was compiled by the Museum of Madeiran Heritage in New Bedford, Massachusetts. I live in southeastern Massachusetts that's home to a large population of Portuguese immigrants, mostly from Madeira and the Azores. And there's a sweet little museum documenting their heritage and history here. I'll touch more on that later. So now let's get into the recipe. To a stand mixer, add 100 grams or half a cup of sugar and 1 egg and beat until thick and pale yellow. You may notice a second set of hands in this video. My daughter wanted to help me film since she's home on summer vacation, so I said, of course. Once you've reached the desired consistency, add a quarter cup or 60 milliliters of milk that has been warmed and melted with 2.5 tablespoons or 40 grams of unsalted butter, and then add in a quarter teaspoon of vanilla extract. Whisk that all together just until combined. Now switch to a paddle attachment and add 300 grams or 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And then you're also going to add in 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. And if it's summer like it is where we are, then your salt might stick to your ingredient bowl like it did to ours due to the humidity. Now very briefly combine everything just until there are no flour streaks left. You don't want to overwork this so that the dough doesn't become tough. If your environment is warm, you might want to let this sit in the refrigerator for half an hour before rolling out. While mine is in the refrigerator, I'll tell you a little bit about biscoitos as well as some of the Madeiran history and cultural events in the area where I live. In the 19th century, many Portuguese immigrated to the northeastern United States, primarily Massachusetts, since New Bedford had become the whaling capital of the U.S. If New Bedford sounds familiar to you, it's because it plays a central role in the novel Moby Dick by Herman Melville. Whaling ships often stopped off in the Azores and Madeira, islands off of Portugal, and recruited new crew members. Another draw to the area were the textile mills in New Bedford, Fall River, Lowell, Lawrence, and also parts of Rhode Island and New Hampshire. These buildings that were once textile mills are peppered all throughout southeastern Massachusetts and parts of New England still, and they've mostly been converted into apartments and commercial buildings, but they are all over the area and are really characteristic of this part of the country. As I mentioned before, there are several large festivals in this area every year. One is the Feast of the Blessed Sacrament in New Bedford, and the other is the Feast of the Holy Spirit in Fall River, another nearby city. The feast in New Bedford dates all the way back to 1915, when 4 Portuguese immigrants from the island of Madeira experienced a treacherous expedition crossing the Atlantic. They vowed that if they made it to the United States safely, that they would create a festival in honor of the Blessed Sacrament. They did indeed make it safely, and now New Bedford boasts the largest Portuguese festival in the United States. Here's some footage from last year's feast that my family and I went to. The festival is filled with dancing and music, all different types of Portuguese food, including being able to spit roast your own meat on a very large skewer. That was really fun. And of course, different types of fried foods that you often find at events like this, and Portuguese malasadas. And what would a Madeiran feast be without Madeira wine? Speaking of Madeira wine, biscoitos, the cookie I'm showing you today, is often dipped in either Madeira or a cup of coffee because it's a hard and crunchy cookie and only very mildly sweet. You can find these cookies in different shapes. Some are skinny circles, others are fat and round, some are even glazed with a lemon icing. And these belong in the category of cookies that you often find throughout Europe called rusks. However, you can't categorize these as a true rusk because they are not twice baked like most rusks are. I could not find much in the way of history about these, but they do harken back to an earlier time in that their crunchiness leads to a long shelf life, and their minimal sugar indicates that sugar was not always readily available for baking. So while I have no evidence that these were eaten on whaling ships, they do remind me a bit of the hard biscuits that sailors would carry with them due to their long shelf life. Now that my dough has been resting in the fridge for about half an hour, I'll show you how to shape them. With oiled hands, take a small piece of dough and roll it into a 6-inch or 15-centimeter long rope. Form a circle and overlap the ends, but don't press them together. Just set one on top of the other. They will fuse together in the oven. Place them on a parchment-lined baking sheet about 1.5 inches apart. Then bake them in a 350-degree Fahrenheit, 180-degree Celsius preheated oven for about 15 to 18 minutes or until lightly golden. The longer you bake them, the crunchier they'll be, so that's totally up to your preference. Then you're going to let them cool on a rack before you enjoy them.
It's funny because my husband grew up eating these. He's not Portuguese. However, in all of the grocery stores around here, you can buy bags of biscoitos, and they are sold either plain like this or glazed with like a lemon icing. So that is an option for these if you prefer a sweeter version. So let's give these a try. These cookies are just one of those treats that is not too sweet, but perfect to satisfy that little craving of sugar you might have in the afternoon to pair with your cup of coffee. They have that crunch that's perfect for dipping in a hot cup of coffee or tea. And then you can also pair these with Madeira wine or port or something like that. You could dip it in that as well. So I definitely recommend these as a really simple treat. Very easy to make, delicious, not too sweet. If you want to try another Portuguese recipe, I have these Portuguese sweet potato cookies and Portuguese pumpkin donuts. So those are really delicious and might be worth a try. So watch one of those videos after this one, and I will see you next time.